The wounded stranger, the medical supply room, should have been locked. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the doorway of his frontier clinic, staring at the small figure huddled between crates of bandages and antiseptic solutions. The emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across her face, revealing features that were almost human, but not quite. Her skin held a faint lavender tint, and her eyes were too large, too luminous in the darkness. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old by human standards. Her clothes were torn and stained with something that might have been blood. When she looked up at Marcus, those oversized eyes filled with terror so profound it took his breath away. She pressed herself further into the corner, making herself as small as possible. "It's okay," Marcus said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm a doctor. I won't hurt you." The girl didn't respond, but her trembling intensified. Marcus noticed the way she held her left arm against her body, protective and pained. He'd seen enough injuries in his 15 years of medicine to recognize the signs of serious trauma. Haven's Edge colony existed on the furthest reaches of human Valerian space, a place where refugees fleeing war and persecution sought sanctuary. Marcus had chosen this posting specifically because it was far from everything he'd left behind. Far from the memories of patients he couldn't save during the border conflicts, far from the nightmares that still woke him in the cold hours before dawn. But looking at this frightened child, he felt something stir in his chest that he thought he'd buried years ago. Purpose, the driving need to heal, to protect, to make things right. "My name is Marcus," he tried again, slowly kneeling to make himself less threatening. "Can you tell me your name?" After a long moment, she whispered something so quiet, he almost missed it. "Zira, Zira," he repeated gently. "That's a beautiful name. Zira, I need to check your injuries. I promise I'll be very careful. Is that okay?" She studied him with those luminous eyes, weighing his words against whatever experiences had taught her to hide in supply closets. Finally, almost imperceptibly, she nodded as Marcus carefully approached. He noticed details that made his trained eye narrow with concern. The way she flinched when he moved too quickly, the careful positioning of her body to minimize pain, the half-healed marks on her visible skin that looked disturbingly deliberate. "Can you show me where it hurts?" he asked. Zira hesitated, then slowly lifted the edge of her torn shirt. Marcus felt his jaw clench at what he saw. Her torso was a map of injuries in various stages of healing. Bruises, cuts, and scars that formed patterns too systematic to be accidental. Someone had hurt this child. Repeatedly. Methodically. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his medical scanner, forcing himself to maintain a calm demeanor. "I'm just going to use this to see what needs fixing, okay? It won't hurt." The scanner's holographic display painted a grim picture. Multiple healed fractures. Internal scarring. Evidence of long-term malnutrition. But what caught Marcus's attention most was the fresh damage. Injuries no more than a few days old that suggested Zira had recently escaped from whoever had been hurting her. A soft chime from his office terminal interrupted the examination. Marcus glanced at the display showing a visitor at the front entrance. Through the security camera, he saw a woman in the dark blue uniform of the Valerian Diplomatic Corps. She was tall and graceful. With the characteristic lavender skin and silver hair of her species, something about her bearing commanded attention. She moved with quiet confidence, her expression serious as she waited for someone to answer the door. Marcus knew he should probably hide Zira before dealing with official visitors, but something in his gut told him this woman might be exactly who they needed. "Stay here," he told Zira gently. "I'll be right back." When Marcus opened the front door, the Valerian woman turned to face him. Her eyes were a striking shade of amber, and they fixed on him with penetrating intensity. "Dr. Webb?" she asked, her voice carrying the melodic quality common to her species. "I am Commander Serafina Vex of the Valerian Refugee Protection Unit. I'm investigating reports of missing children from the settlement camps. I was told you might have information." Marcus found himself momentarily caught by her direct gaze. There was something compelling about her presence, a sense of barely contained energy and determination. He noticed the way her hand rested near the weapon at her hip, not threatening, but ready. This was someone who had seen conflict and knew how to handle herself. "I might," Marcus said carefully. "Come in." Dangerous discovery. Serafina followed Marcus through the clinic, her amber eyes taking in every detail with practiced assessment. When he led her to the supply room and she saw Zira, her expression transformed. The professional mask cracked, revealing something raw and pained beneath. "By the ancestors," she whispered, kneeling beside the child. "Zira, is it really you?" The girl's eyes widened with recognition and hope. "Commander Zira." Marcus watched as Serafina gathered the child into a careful embrace, mindful of her injuries. "We've been searching for you for 3 weeks. Your guardian reported you missing from Camp 7? "My guardian?" Zira's voice turned bitter beyond her years. "The Nox wasn't my guardian. He was my jailer." The name seemed to strike Serafina like a physical blow. She looked up at Marcus, and he saw fury burning in those amber eyes. "The Nox, I knew that bastard was involved." "You know who hurt her?" Marcus asked. Serafina stood slowly, her expression hardening into something dangerous. "The Nox runs an orphanage in the refugee camps. Officially, he's a respected community leader helping displaced children. Unofficially, I've suspected for months that he's part of something much darker." She began pacing the small room, her mind clearly racing through implications. Marcus found himself drawn to her intensity, the way she channeled her anger into focused determination. Here was someone who cared deeply, who wouldn't rest until justice was served. "I need to examine her injuries thoroughly," Marcus said. "If Zira is willing, I'd like to document everything. Build a case." "Yes," Serafina agreed immediately. "Whatever evidence we can gather, but we need to be careful. If Danox realizes we have her, he'll move his operation."
Ow.
Over the next hour, Marcus conducted a comprehensive examination while Serafina stayed close to comfort Zira. The child spoke in halting sentences about the orphanage, about the other children who disappeared, about the visitors who came at night to inspect them like merchandise. Every word made Marcus's blood boil. He glanced at Serafina and saw his own rage reflected in her expression. But there was something else too, a shared understanding of what needed to be done and the risks they would have to take. "There are 16 other children still at the orphanage," Zira finally whispered. "We have to help them." "We will," Serafina promised fiercely. "I swear it." As Zira finally drifted into an exhausted sleep on one of the medical beds, Marcus and Serafina moved to his office. The small space felt even smaller with her presence, the air charged with an energy he couldn't quite name. "I need to be honest with you," Serafina said, leaning against his desk. "This investigation has been unofficial. My superiors shut down my inquiries months ago. Said I was seeing conspiracies where there was only tragedy." Marcus asked, moving closer without quite realizing it. "Because the Nox has protection. Powerful friends in both the Valerian government and the colonial administration." Her jaw tightened. "Friends who benefit from what he provides?" "Which is?" "Children," she said bluntly. "For buyers who have very specific, very illegal tastes. I've been tracking rumors of an interstellar trafficking network for 2 years. My own sister." Her voice broke slightly. "My sister disappeared when she was Zira's age. I never found her." The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Marcus reached out instinctively, his hand finding hers. She didn't pull away. Her fingers curled around his, warm and strong. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Don't be sorry," Serafina replied, meeting his eyes. "Help me stop it from happening to anyone else." "I will," Marcus promised. "Whatever it takes." They stood there for a long moment, hands clasped, sharing something deeper than words. Marcus felt the walls he'd built around himself beginning to crumble. Here was someone who understood loss and rage and the desperate need to make things right. Someone who wouldn't back down from a fight. "We need a plan," Serafina finally said, though she didn't release his hand. "Something bold enough to expose the whole network." Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. What if we went undercover? Posed as potential buyers? Seraphine's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed with calculation. That could work, but it would be dangerous. These people kill to protect their secrets. I don't care about the danger, Marcus said fiercely. I care about those children. A small smile touched Seraphine's lips, the first he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, revealing warmth beneath the warrior's exterior. You're either very brave or very foolish, Dr. Webb. Probably both, he admitted. They spent the next several hours planning, their heads bent close together over maps and files. Marcus became increasingly aware of Seraphine's presence. The way her silver hair caught the light, the subtle scent of something like jasmine that clung to her skin. Every accidental touch sent electricity through him, at some point during the long night. Serafina looked up from the documents and found Marcus watching her. Their eyes met and held. What? She asked softly. Nothing, Marcus said. Just, I'm glad you walked through my door tonight. Her expression softened. So am I. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and unspoken attraction. Then Serafina reached across the desk, her fingers brushing his jaw in a gesture that was both tentative and bold. Marcus leaned into her touch, his heart racing. We should focus on the mission, she whispered, but she didn't pull away. Marcus agreed, equally quietly. But I'm finding it difficult to focus on anything except you right now. Seraphine's breath caught. For a heartbeat, Marcus thought she might close the distance between them. But then she drew back slightly, though her hand remained against his face. After, she said firmly, when this is over and those children are safe, then ... She left the sentence unfinished, but her eyes promised everything. Then, Marcus echoed, committing the word to memory like a vow. Into the shadows, the underground market existed in the forgotten spaces of Haven's Edge, where official jurisdiction gave way to criminal enterprise. Marcus adjusted his collar, uncomfortable in the expensive civilian clothes that Serafina had procured for their cover. Beside him, she moved with easy confidence in a flowing dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and practical. Remember, she murmured as they approached the entrance? You're Dante Cross, a wealthy entrepreneur with questionable ethics and expensive tastes. I'm your companion and advisor, and we're here because you've grown bored with legal pleasures and seek something more exotic. Her hand slipped into his, fingers intertwining naturally. Stay close to me. Let me do most of the talking initially. Contact sent warmth flooding through Marcus's system. Over the past 3 days of preparation, they'd grown increasingly comfortable with each other, their partnership deepening into something that felt inevitable. But the mission had kept them focused, professional. Always pulling back from the edge of something more, tonight that restraint would be tested. Their cover required intimacy, the appearance of a couple deeply entangled in all ways. Marcus wasn't sure how he'd managed to fake feelings that were becoming increasingly real. They passed through security. Seraphine's forged credentials gaining them access to the exclusive auction house. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with corruption and wealth. Beings from a dozen species mingled, their conversations hushed and furtive. Their Serafina whispered, nodding toward a Valerian male in expensive robes. That's the Nox. Marcus studied the man who had hurt Zira. He looked refined and cultured, nothing like the monster he was. It took every ounce of Marcus's self-control not to cross the room and break. His neck. Serafina must have sensed his tension. Her hand tightened on his. Not yet, she breathed. We need evidence first. She guided him to a private alcove where they could observe without being obvious. As they settled onto the plush seating, Serafina shifted closer, her body pressing against his side. To any observer, they looked like lovers seeking a quiet moment. I can see him talking to someone, Marcus said quietly. Human male, military bearing. It's Colonel Vance, Serafina replied, her voice barely audible. Head of Colonial Security. Damn it, I knew there was military involvement, but I didn't expect it to go so high. She leaned closer, ostensibly nuzzling his neck, but actually getting a better view. The position put her lips against his skin, and Marcus felt his pulse jump. This was supposed to be an act, but his body didn't seem to care about the distinction. Serafina, he started, but she silenced him with a finger against his lips. They're watching us, she whispered. We need to sell this. Before Marcus could respond, her lips replaced her finger. The kiss was meant to be part of their cover, performance to convince suspicious criminals that they were just another corrupt couple. But the moment their mouths met, something ignited. Seraphine's hand curled into his hair, and Marcus pulled her closer, the kiss deepening beyond what their cover required. He tasted jasmine and starlight, and something uniquely her. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. That was ... double quotes, Marcus began. Necessary, Seraphina finished, but her eyes told a different story. They were dark with desire, her pupils dilated in a way that had nothing to do with the dim lighting. A server approached with drinks, breaking the moment. As they accepted the glasses, Marcus noticed the Nox watching them with interest. The predator had noticed potential prey.
Ow.
He'll approach soon. When he does, follow my lead. Sure enough, within minutes, the Nox made his way over. Up close, his smile was oil-slick and practiced. "Forgive the intrusion," he said smoothly, "but I couldn't help but notice new faces at our little gathering." "The Knoxville, at your service." "Dante Cross," Marcus replied, extending his hand with practiced confidence. "And this is my partner, Syrah." The Nox's eyes lingered on Seraphina with unsettling interest. "A pleasure. What brings you to our exclusive establishment?" "Curiosity," Seraphina purred, playing her role perfectly. "And certain appetites that are difficult to satisfy through conventional means." "Indeed?" The Nox's smile widened. "Perhaps you might be interested in tonight's special offering. Very exclusive, very rare." Marcus felt his stomach turn but maintained his expression of casual interest. "We're always interested in rare opportunities." The Nox gestured for them to follow. As they walked through the crowded room, Seraphine's hand found Marcus's again, grounding him. They were led to a private viewing room where several other wealthy-looking individuals were gathering. "Tonight we have something exceptional," the Nox announced to the assembled group. "Children of exceptional quality, perfect for various purposes. The bidding will begin shortly." The casual way he spoke about children as commodities made Marcus's vision blur with rage. He felt Seraphine's nails dig into his palm, warning to stay controlled. The viewing began, and Marcus forced himself to watch as frightened children were paraded before the crowd. He committed every face to memory, every detail that might help identify and rescue them later. And then he saw a familiar face among the children, a small Valerian girl with lavender skin and terrified eyes. It wasn't Zira, think the stars, but she could have been. Same age, same species, same marks of abuse. Marcus felt something in him crack open, all the pain and guilt he'd carried from his past failures surging up. These children needed him. He couldn't fail them too. Seraphina must have sensed his turmoil. Under the cover of examining the merchandise, she leaned close and whispered fiercely, "We're going to save them all. I promise you, Marcus." All of them. Her certainty steadied him. He turned to look at her, and in her eyes he saw the reflection of his own determination and something more. She believed in him, in them, in what they could accomplish together. "When this is over," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." "I know," she replied, her amber eyes soft. "I need to tell you something too." The moment was interrupted by the Nox returning. "Have you seen anything that interests you?" Marcus forced himself to smile, channeling all his disgust into a performance. "Several possibilities, but I prefer to discuss terms privately," of course the Nox said smoothly. "Shall we say tomorrow evening? I can arrange a more intimate viewing." "Perfect," Seraphina purred. "We look forward to it." As they left the auction house an hour later, Marcus pulled Seraphina into a shadowed alley. His hands framed her face, and he rested his forehead against hers, just breathing for a moment. "That was the hardest thing I've ever done," he admitted. "I know," Seraphina whispered, "but tomorrow we end this." "Tomorrow?" Marcus agreed. Then, because he couldn't help himself, because the mission had brought them to the edge and he was done pretending, he kissed her again. This time, there was no audience, no cover to maintain. Just two people finding solace and strength in each other amid the darkness. When they finally pulled apart, Seraphina smiled. It was fierce and beautiful and full of promise. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "We have a rescue to plan." The rescue operation, the building loomed against the night sky. A converted warehouse on the edge of the settlement where the Knox kept his merchandise. Marcus crouched behind a storage container, checking his weapon one final time. Beside him, Serafina adjusted her tactical gear, her movements precise and practiced. Backup teams are in position, she confirmed, listening to the cum in her ear. My people will move in exactly 10 minutes after we enter. That gives us time to locate the children and get them clear of the crossfire. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. The private viewing had been scheduled for an hour from now, but they decided to move early. Surprise was their only advantage against the Knox's security forces and the corrupt officials protecting him. Ready? Serafina asked, her amber eyes meeting his. Ready, Marcus confirmed. They moved together with practiced coordination, their training from different backgrounds meshing seamlessly. Serafina disabled the security system with equipment from her Valerian contacts, while Marcus picked the lock on the side entrance. Within 60 seconds, they were inside. The interior was dimly lit, filled with crates and supplies that provided cover. Somewhere in this building were the children they'd seen at the auction, waiting to be sold to the highest bidders. The thought made Marcus's blood boil, but he channeled his rage into focus. A guard appeared around a corner. Serafina moved before Marcus could react, her combat training evident in the fluid way she disarmed and incapacitated the man. He hit the ground unconscious without making a sound. Former Special Forces? Marcus whispered. Something like that, she replied with a small smile. They continued deeper into the building, taking down 2 more guards before reaching a secured door. Through the small window, Marcus could see what looked like a dormitory. Rows of small beds. Children sleeping or crying quietly in the darkness. This is it, he breathed. Serafina was already working on the lock. The mechanism clicked open, and they slipped inside. Immediately, frightened faces turned toward them. Marcus raised his hands in a calming gesture. It's okay, he said softly. We're here to help. We're going to get you out. Small Valerian boy, no older than 6, looked up at Serafina. Are you real? Or another test? Serafina knelt beside him, her expression gentle. I'm real, and I promise no one will ever hurt you again. The children began to respond, hope warring with fear in their expressions. Marcus quickly assessed the group. 15 children total, ranging in age from about 5 to 12. Some showed signs of recent injuries. All looked malnourished and terrified. Can you all walk? Marcus asked. Most nodded, though a few of the younger ones looked unsteady. Serafina was already organizing them, her command presence reassuring the frightened children. Marcus felt a surge of admiration watching her work. She was magnificent, fierce and gentle all at once. An alarm suddenly split the air. Someone had discovered their breach. Change of plans, Serafina said sharply, speaking into her cum. We're blown. Move in now. The sound of combat erupted throughout the building. Serafina positioned herself at the door, weapon ready. Marcus, get them to the east exit. I'll cover you. I'm not leaving you, he protested. You're not leaving me, she corrected, her eyes flashing. You're protecting these children. That's what matters. Marcus wanted to argue, but she was right. The children had to come first. Be careful, he said fiercely. Always, she replied, then surprised him by pulling him down for a quick, hard kiss. Now go. Marcus gathered the children, lifting the smallest ones, while urging the older kids to help each other. They moved as quickly as possible, toward the east exit, the sounds of fighting growing louder behind them. Halfway there, they ran into Colonel Vance and 3 armed soldiers. The corrupt officer smiled coldly, his weapon trained on Marcus. Dr. Webb, I presume? This is very disappointing. I'd hoped to avoid unpleasant complications. Marcus pushed the children behind him, his mind racing for options. He was outgunned and outnumbered, but he'd be damned if he'd let them recapture these kids. It's over, Vance, Marcus said, trying to buy time. Seraphine's people are already here. The whole operation is being documented. Vance's expression darkened. Then I suppose there's no point in leaving witnesses. He raised his weapon, and Marcus prepared to throw himself in front of the children. But before Vance could fire, An explosion rocked the building. The distraction was all Marcus needed. He tackled Vance, struggling for control of the weapon. The fight was brief and brutal. Vance had military training, but Marcus fought with the desperation of someone protecting innocent lives. When Seraphine's backup team burst through moments later, they found Marcus standing over the unconscious colonel, breathing hard. "The children?" one of Seraphine's people asked. Safe, Marcus confirmed, looking back at the frightened but unharmed kids. "Where's Seraphina?" "Still inside, engaging the Nox in his personal security." Marcus's heart clenched. Without thinking, he ran back into the building, following the sounds of combat. He found Seraphina in the main warehouse area, facing off against the Nox and two heavily armed guards. She was holding her own but outnumbered. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, and she was favoring her left side. Marcus didn't hesitate. He fired at the nearest guard. The training from his military days taking over. The guard went down, and Seraphina used the distraction to disarm the second. That left only the Nox, who pulled a weapon and aimed it at Seraphina. "You should have stayed out of this," the Nox snarled. "Did you really think you could stop us? The network is too big, too powerful." "Maybe," Seraphina said calmly, "but we stopped you. That's enough." The Nox's finger tightened on the trigger. Marcus fired without conscious thought, his shot striking the Nox's weapon and sending it spinning away. The trafficker stumbled back, shock replacing his arrogance. "It's over," Marcus said, moving to stand beside Seraphina. "Your friends in the government are already being arrested. The evidence we gathered is being broadcast across the sector. You have nowhere to run." The fight seemed to drain out of the Nox. He slumped against a crate as Seraphine's backup team moved in to secure him. Marcus turned to Seraphina, his hands immediately going to her injuries. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," she insisted, but she leaned into his touch. "The children. Safe? All of them." Relief flooded her expression, followed quickly by something deeper. "We did it," she whispered. "We did it," Marcus confirmed. Then, in the middle of the warehouse with armed personnel securing the scene around them, Seraphina threw her arms around Marcus and kissed him with all the pent-up emotion of the past days. He kissed her back, pouring everything he felt into the contact. All his fear and relief and the feelings he'd been holding back when they finally broke apart. Both were grinning despite the chaos. "That was incredibly unprofessional," Seraphina said breathlessly. "Completely inappropriate," Marcus agreed, still holding her close. "We should probably discuss this somewhere private." "Definitely," Marcus said. "But first, ... He looked toward where the rescue teams were leading the children to safety. "Let's make sure they're okay." Seraphina nodded, her hand finding his, as they walked together toward the children they'd saved. Whatever came next, they would face it together. New beginnings 3 months later, Marcus stood on the balcony of his new clinic, watching the sunset paint Haven's Edge in shades of amber and rose. The facility was larger than his previous one, funded by a combination of government reparations and private donations after the trafficking. Scandal broke wide open. Inside, Zira laughed at something one of the nurses said. The sound still surprised Marcus sometimes, so different from the terrified child he'd found in his supply closet. She was healing, slowly but surely, though the scars would always remain, thinking deep thoughts. Seraphine's voice came from behind him, warm and familiar. Marcus turned, a smile already forming. She looked beautiful in the golden light, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. Over the past months, he'd memorized every detail of her face, and somehow she still took his breath away. "Just grateful," he said, pulling her close. "For all of this." Seraphina wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head against his chest. "The trial starts next week. The Nox, Vance, and 43 others. It's going to be ugly, but necessary," Marcus said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Those children deserve justice." "They do," she agreed. "And thanks to you, they're getting it." All 16 kids from the warehouse are in safe foster situations now. The Valerian government has implemented new protections for refugee children. Change is happening. Marcus thought about the ripple effects of their actions. The investigation had exposed corruption at the highest levels of both human and Valerian governments. New safeguards were being implemented across multiple worlds. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. "How are you feeling about the transfer?" he asked. Serafina had been offered a promotion, heading up a new task force dedicated to combating interstellar trafficking. It was everything she'd worked toward, a chance to continue her sister's fight on a much larger scale. "Excited," she said. Terrified. Guilty. Guilty. She pulled back slightly to look at him. "The position is based on the capital world. That's 6 months of travel from here." Marcus had known this conversation was coming. They'd been dancing around it for weeks, both aware that decisions needed to be made. "So come with me," Serafina said, her amber eyes searching his face. "The task force needs medical personnel, people who understand trauma and can help survivors heal. You'd be perfect. Leave Haven's Edge." Marcus looked back at the clinic, thinking of all the patients who depended on him. "I know it's a lot to ask," Serafina said quickly. "And if you say no, I'll understand. We can try the long-distance thing." Or Marcus silenced her with a kiss. When he pulled back, he was smiling. "I wasn't hesitating because I don't want to go. I was just thinking about logistics. The clinic needs a director, but I know several excellent doctors who would jump at the opportunity." Hope bloomed in Seraphine's expression. "You mean—" "I mean yes," Marcus said firmly. "Wherever you go, I go. We're a team, remember?" Seraphine's answering smile was radiant. She kissed him again, deeper this time, full of promise and joy. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "I love you," Serafina said. The words came easily, naturally, as if she'd been waiting to say them. "I love you too," Marcus replied, the truth of it settling into his bones. "I think I have since you walked into my clinic that first night." "Love at first sight?" she teased. "How very human of you," says the woman who kissed me during our first undercover mission. "That was purely professional," Serafina protested, laughing. Sure it was. They stood together in the fading light, content in each other's presence. Inside, they could hear Zero playing with the other children who came to the clinic for therapy sessions. The sound of healing, of hope restored. "What about Zira?" Marcus asked. "She's made so much progress here. Moving might set her back." Serafina was quiet for a moment. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I've been thinking. What if we formally adopted her? Gave her a permanent home with us?" Marcus felt his heart swell. He'd grown deeply attached to the brave little girl, had privately thought of her as his daughter for weeks now. "You want to adopt her?" "Both of us." "If you do," Serafina said softly, "I know it's a big step, and we haven't been together that long, but it feels right. She needs stability and love, and we can give her that." "Yes," Marcus said immediately. "Absolutely yes." They went inside together to tell Zira the news. The girl looked up from her drawing, her face lighting up when she saw them. Serafina knelt beside her. "We have something important to ask you. How would you feel about coming to live with us permanently? Being part of our family?" Zira's eyes went wide. "Really? Forever?" "Forever," Marcus confirmed, kneeling on her other side. "If you want to." The girl launched herself at them, wrapping her arms around both their necks. "Yes, I want to. I want a family." Marcus met Seraphine's eyes over Zira's head, seeing his own joy reflected there. They'd both come to Haven's Edge running from pain and searching for purpose. Instead, they'd found each other and a daughter who needed them as much as they needed her.